They used to think they had forever. Emma and Daniel were 24 and completely in love. They lived in a tiny apartment above an old bakery. Every morning, Daniel brought Emma coffee in bed, and every evening they walked home together through the same quiet streets. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and for a little while that was enough. Then the war began. Within weeks, everything changed. The streets they knew filled with soldiers, shops closed, people disappeared. And one morning, Daniel received his orders. Emma tried not to cry. She smiled instead. She held his face in her hands and said, "Come back to me." Daniel kissed her forehead. "I will." The train left that afternoon. Emma stood on the platform until she could no longer see it, and for the first time in her life, the world felt enormous. 3 days later, Daniel's first letter arrived. He wrote that he was safe. He told her about the terrible food. He joked about missing her coffee, and at the end, he wrote, "Keep the window open at night. I want to imagine I'm still coming home." Emma read that sentence every night. Then she wrote back. They began sending letters whenever they could, sometimes every week, sometimes only once a month, but every letter began the same way. "I love you." Months passed. Daniel's letters became shorter. He stopped talking about the fighting. He only wrote about Emma, their apartment, the bakery downstairs, and the little blue dress she used to wear. It was as if he was trying to remember a life that was slowly disappearing. Then, one Thursday morning, Emma received his shortest letter yet. It contained only 3 lines. "Emma, I'm coming home soon. I have something important to tell you." Emma smiled for the first time in months. She cleaned the apartment. She bought his favorite food. She even bought a new blue dress. She waited and waited, but Daniel never came. The next day, nothing. The next week, nothing. Then a month passed. Emma wrote to him. No answer. She wrote again. No answer. Eventually, a military officer came to her door. Daniel had disappeared during an attack. There was no body, no grave, no final goodbye, only the words, "Missing in action." Emma refused to believe he was gone. She kept the window open every night, just as he had asked. 1 year passed, then 2, then 5. The war ended. People came home, some with medals, some without memories, some without the people they had left behind. Daniel never came home. Emma eventually moved to a smaller apartment. She grew older, but she kept every letter, every single one. Then, 7 years after Daniel disappeared, Emma received a letter. But it wasn't from Daniel. It was from a hospital in another country. They had found him. Daniel had survived the attack, but he had been badly injured. He had lost part of his memory, and for years he didn't know his own name. The people who found him had called him David. He had no identification, no family, no past. But there was one thing he remembered, a woman in a blue dress standing beside a train. The doctors asked him what her name was. He didn't know, but he remembered one word, Emma. 7 years later, Emma opened her front door. A man stood outside, older, thinner, with scars across his face, but his eyes were the same. Emma couldn't move. Daniel looked at her. He didn't say anything. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was the last letter she'd ever sent him. "I don't remember everything," he whispered, "but I remember you." Emma began to cry. She stepped forward and held him. For 7 years, she'd wondered if he was alive. For 7 years, he had wondered who he was, and somehow their letters had carried them back to each other. That night, Emma finally closed the window. Daniel was sitting beside her, just like they used to. She looked at him and smiled through her tears. "You're home." Daniel smiled. "I told you I would come back."